Good morning, everyone. Mrs. Dahlhoff here. Happy Monday to all of you. I'm going to try to talk a little bit louder so that I don't have to have earbuds in, and maybe we'll get a little bit clearer reception on your end for this. We are starting a short story unit, and rather than having a couple different short stories going on with the different grade levels, I've picked one. It's called Ruthless, and I'm going to read it aloud to all of you. Your end assignment will be slightly different based on your grade and writing ability, but overall, while we're doing this, we're going to do the same short story. It's actually a really good one. If you were here when we did the unit with Lambda Slaughter or the Landlady, it's a story along those lines, so it'll be pretty cool. The name of this story, I made a little dry erase board, and you're not going to be able to see me for a second. The name of the story is Ruthless by William DeMille. There you go, hi again, by William DeMille. The word ruthless is actually in the dictionary. It's an adjective, and I wrote down the definition for you, so here you go. It is having no pity or compassion for others. All right, and also, if you happen to be looking out, I wrote you a little note down there. Please stop looking out. Seriously though, back to the definition. So again, ruthless is having no compassion, no pity for others. So with that title, you can kind of take a little bit of a guess and figure out what you think this story might be about. The protagonist, his name is Judson. He is definitely ruthless, and so you can kind of just guess in advance, foreshadowing by the title, kind of guess in advance what you think might be going on in this story. It's only a couple pages long, so I will read it aloud to you. At this point, you should have copies of it on your desk, and if you do, please follow along. And also at this point, if as a group you decide that you don't want me to read the story to you, I will not be offended. Your detention staff can just shut off the computer here, and you guys can read silently. Otherwise, follow along, pay attention. I have my computer here to read it, so let me get it back up to the beginning, and I'll read it to you. So sit back, enjoy. It's on the computer, so as I go back and forth, just bear with me, and I will try to remember to keep my voice loud for you guys. All right, so Ruthless by William DeMille. Outside, the woods lay in a clear October sunlight. The autumn air was full of sharp, exciting smell of moist, leaf-covered earth. Inside, a man smiled grimly as he turned away from the bathroom cabinet, entered the primitive living room of his mountain camp, and crossed to a closet set in the pine wall. It was a special closet with a spring lock, and in it he kept guns, ammunition, fishing rods, and liquor. Not even his wife was allowed to have a key, for Judson Webb loved his personal possessions and became furious if they were touched by any other hand but his own. The closet door stood open. He had been packing his things away for the winter, and in a few minutes he would be driving back to civilization. As he looked at the shelf on which the liquor stood, his smile was not attractive. All the bottles were unopened, except one quart of bourbon, which was placed invitingly in front, a whiskey glass by itself. The bottle was less than half full. As he took it from the shelf, his wife spoke from the next bedroom. "Everything is packed, Judson," she said. "Hasn't Alec come to turn the water off and get the keys?" Alec lived about a mile down the road and acted as a caretaker for the city folks when they were away. "He's down at the lake taking the boats out of the water. He said he'd be back in a half an hour." Mabel came into the room carrying her suitcase, but she paused in surprise as she saw the bottle in her husband's hand. "Judson," she exclaimed, "you're not taking a drink at 10 o'clock in the morning, are you?" "You're wrong, my dear," he chuckled. "I'm not taking anything out of this bottle. I'm only putting something into it." He closed his hand open, and he put 2 tiny white tablets on the table, and he started to uncork the whiskey. Her eyes narrowed as she watched him. She had learned to dread that tone of his voice. It was the tone he used when he was planning to put something over in business. "Whoever broke into my closet last winter and stole my liquor will probably try it again once we are out of here," he went on. "Only this time he will wish he hadn't." She caught her breath at this cruel vindictiveness as one by one he dropped the tablets into the bottle and held it up to watch them dissolve. "What are they?" she asked. "Something to make him sick?" "And how?" He seemed fascinated as he saw the bourbon changing into a deadly drink. "At least no one has found an antidote. Once it's down, it's the end. He corked the bottle and set it back on the shelf alongside the little whiskey glass. Everything nice and handy, he remarked. Now, Mr. Thief, when you break in, have a good drink. I won't begrudge you this one. The woman's face was pale. Don't do it, Judson, she gasped. It's horrible. It's murder. The law doesn't call it murder if I shoot a thief who is entering my house by force, he said harshly. Also, the use of rat poison is not forbidden. The only way any rat can get into this closet is to break in. What happens then has nothing to do with me. Don't do it, Judson, she begged. The law doesn't punish burglary by death, so what right have you? When it comes to protecting my property, I make my own laws. His voice was deep like that of a big dog growling at the possible loss of a bone. But all they did was steal a little liquor, she pleaded. Probably some boys off on a lark. They didn't do any real damage. That's not the point, he said. If a man holds me up and robs me of $5, it makes me just as sore as if he took 100. A thief's a thief. She made one last effort. We won't be here till next spring. I can't bear to think of the death trap waiting there all the time. Suppose something happens to us, and no one knows. He chuckled once more at her words. We'll take a chance on that, he said. I've made my pile by taking chances. If I should die, you can do as you please. This stuff will be yours. It was useless to argue. She knew. He had always been ruthless. That's the title of our story, remember? He had always been ruthless in business, and whenever anything crossed him, things had to be done his way. She turned toward the door with a sigh. I'll walk down the road and say goodbye at the farmhouse, she said quietly. You can pick me up there. She had made up her mind to tell Alec's wife. Someone had to know. Okay, my dear, he smiled, and don't worry about your poor little burglar. No one is going to get hurt who hasn't got it coming to him. As she went down the path, he started to close the closet door, and then paused as he remembered his hunting boots outside on the porch. They belonged in the closet. So leaving the door open, he went to fetch them from the heavy rustic table on which they stood, along with his bag and topcoat. Alec was coming up from the lake and waved to him from a distance. A chipmunk, hearing Judson's heavy tread, left the acorn it was about to add to its store within the cabin wall and disappeared. When reaching for his boots, Judson stepped upon that acorn. His foot slid from under him, and his head struck the massive table as he fell. Several minutes later, he began to regain his senses. Alec's strong arm was supporting his head as he lay on the porch, and a kindly voice was saying, It wasn't much of a fall, Mr. Webb. You aren't cut none, just knocked out for a minute. Here, take this. It'll pull you together. A small whiskey glass was pressed to Judson's lips. Dazed and half-conscious, he drank. And that's where the story ends. So we don't see this karma playing out, but it's kind of a little bit like karma. Judson, we can tell from this, is going to die. He was very clear that there was no cure for this rat poison. By the way, there is. Don't go out and think you're going to kill people off with rat poison. It's just vitamin K that takes care of that. If you end up with a dog that gets it, your dog will live. We know because it happened around here on our farm. So anyway, back to the story. What your job is going to be is twofold. First of all, just to make sure you are paying attention, go ahead and flip your papers over, your stories, and your detention staff at this point will pass out a short quiz. It's not long, it's not hard. If you are not daydreaming, looking out at the pod, you will be able to pass it with flying colors. Easy 100% for you. If you weren't paying attention, use this as your opportunity to know that for the next 3 short stories after this, you really need to pay attention so that you can get these 100% on these grades for these quizzes. There will be a quiz after each short story. Once you're done with the quiz, if you're in middle school, you just need to write 2 short paragraphs, about 5 sentences each. If you're in high school, I expect 3 paragraphs with at least 6 or 7 sentences apiece, and even more would be awesome. And what you're going to do is create an alternate ending. That ending could be anything from, I don't know, they go away for the winter and they come back a year later and there's a dead person in their house. I don't know. That would be kind of gross. You'd want to use a lot of adjectives, describing words, to say what that was like. It could be that Alec got into the alcohol. It could be that nobody did, that it was nothing at all. I don't really know that you can turn this into a happily ever after story, but if you did, that would be some pretty seriously creative writing. Um, so, anyway, I'm going to sign off here for now so that you guys can get started. You should have about 25 to 30 minutes left to do your quiz on that short writing. And then, if you're detention staff, if you could, at the end of the day, scan that work, the quizzes, and their little paragraphs into me so that I can review them, I would appreciate it. So in a world where you can be anything, ladies and gentlemen, if there's one of you still in the building, in the world where you can be anything, be kind, be a lot kinder than Judson, and I just wish you the best of days. Take care. Bye.